Hi, welcome to Heart Space Education. My name's Lauren and I'm filming from my car again today because my little one's in the back seat asleep. So today's unhelpful thinking pattern that I'd like to focus on is catastrophizing. I feel very familiar with this type of unhelpful thinking pattern. It really does rear its head when I am feeling quite depressed. Even if I just wake up having a bad day, I will automatically jump to the conclusion that I'm headed for a depressive cycle. And it's just not always the case. So yeah, I find that that's one way that I catastrophize. So that's one example of how I tend to catastrophize. I think when we are in a heightened sense of stress, when we are, when our cortisol levels are high and we're sort of in that fight and flight mode that we can often get ourselves in unnecessarily. Those are the times when something little might happen and in our heads we just blow it way out of proportion and it becomes a really big deal. And yeah, like I guess some people might call it being overly dramatic. But I think it's more than just being overly dramatic. It's quite debilitating, particularly when it's affecting the way that you function in everyday life. And I think too, when you have been through trauma, you're almost waiting for the next trauma to happen, particularly if you've been through multiple traumas. You're sort of in that constant state of fight or flight mode and just sort of waiting for that next huge trauma to happen. And so it doesn't even have to be a big thing that happens, and we already create that. We create it. It becomes bigger than Ben-Hur in our mind. So managing catastrophizing thoughts, obviously with any of the unhelpful thinking patterns, the first thing that we need to do is recognize when we're doing it. So we really do need to learn to become a witness to our own thoughts. The more aware we are of the types of thinking that we're engaging in, the more control we have over managing them and moving forward. So number one is noticing, and then another thing to do is to put that particular thought into perspective. So a great activity is to create your own catastrophe scale. You need a piece of paper and some pens, maybe some texters or pencils, and just creating a scale from 1 to 10. Yeah, so 10 would be some sort of event where you're lucky to be alive or your life is compromised. So, and then 1 being something small like getting a paper cut or tripping over and embarrassing yourself. And then you just fill it in the best way that you can so that you gain a little bit of perspective on where each situation sits on that scale. so that when you are recognizing that you're catastrophizing or you're potentially catastrophizing an event, so when you're potentially catastrophizing an event or situation, you're able to refer to that catastrophe scale and really just sit there logically thinking about where this event or situation would lie on the catastrophe scale. And that's just a really good way of putting things into perspective and I guess creating some space between yourself and your emotions as well, because when we're feeling big emotions, that can sometimes trigger thoughts that catastrophize situations. So yeah, so I guess a catastrophe scale helps us to see a situation a lot more logically and rationally, and helps us to create a bit of space between our emotions and our rational thoughts. So yeah, hope this helps. Thank you. Bye. Don't forget to like and share and subscribe these videos, and I'll make sure that I upload and send a link to a creative activity connected to catastrophizing situations. Thank you.